This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for Avoid the Maze. The maze is our journey through life. And my guest today is Joanna Armstrong. And one of the things that I always talk about right at the beginning of a podcast is so many of us make certain plans when we're very young. We think we know exactly how our life is going to turn out. And the funny part is that usually it doesn't follow that pattern. We take detours, and some of the detours we take, we don't even know why we've taken them. It just road happened to be there, and we just started walking down it. So for those of you listening, we understand that you have challenges as well. So today, Joanna is going to take us on her journey. Who did you think you were going to be when you were that little girl? And is this where you think you're going to be even 5, 10 years from now?
Thank you, Karen, for having me. It's really nice being here with you. My journey, I thought I would be an artist, except my mom didn't think so. And so she didn't discourage me, and yet she did. So at one point, I reached out because between her advice and my inner turbulence, I reached out to the heavens, literally. I'm not very religious, um, but I'm spiritual, turns out. And I said, what should I do? What's my path? And I got this really strange thing back, which was to make people happy. And what is that?
Exactly, exactly.
So on that road, it's been this maze. It's been this and trying that and something else. And I suppose I'm almost there. It's taken a long time, but I think I'm getting there. So I was on the outside. I come across as very cool and collected and quiet and, well, calm at least. Um, and yet on the inside I had this turbulence, the worries. What are people going to think? How is it going to go? Can I do this? Are they going to like me? All these secret feelings and covered up emotions about how I was, how other people were. Did I dare to do this? Would it be appropriate to do that? And it was just exhausting. It was just so tiring. So I started looking for my own sake. I started looking at what is there out there? What can I be helped with? And on that journey, I discovered some amazing tools that, um, based on a person like me, that is on the outside calm, but on the inside eager. I found some amazing tools that are so efficient, so soothing, so nice. And that's what I teach now. So my maze has been amazing. And like many people that have had trouble in life, I can't say my trouble was tremendous or horrific. I have clients that have that kind of journeys,
Sure.
but even so, I mean, you don't have to have a horrendous, horrific life to get to an even better place.
Absolutely.
So with some simple tools, you can really, really make a difference. And that's what I want to share with people and teach them how to um, not waste your life, not waste your happiness, not waste your opportunities, your greatness. Who cares what people are going to think? Who cares what they're not on your path. You can say no to people. You can say thank you, but not right now. And follow your maze to where you're
Absolutely.
supposed to be.
I
So that's my journey
love when
in a nutshell.
I love when you said, you sort of looked up to the heavens and you said, "What should I do?" And it
Mm,
was help people. And I
mhm,
love that message because for about 10 years I worked at a um, for-profit college. And every student who walked into my office they wanted to be a nurse. And my question was, why do you want to be a nurse? Oh, I
Mm,
want to help people. Well, nursing is one way to help people.
exactly.
And then they might say, well, I took care of my grandmother or my baby sister or whatever. And I'd say, okay, but that's family. There's a difference taking care of family than there is taking care of a stranger. And to
Mhm.
become a nurse, these are all the things you have to do. Now, do you have any interest in these things?
Mm.
And 90% of them would look at me and go, no, you know, I don't like the sight of
Interesting.
blood.
Mhm.
I don't like touching people. And it's like, well, then nursing is not your path.
Mm.
And I would remind them, I'm sitting across the table from you. I'm helping you.
Mhm.
There's so many ways that we can help people.
Yeah.
And before we can make anybody else happy, we have to feel happy
Mm.
because otherwise there's no authentic tool that we're sharing with anybody.
Although the interesting thing is that, as you mentioned, nurses, they sometimes it actually is easier to help someone else than yourself. Sometimes it is easier to make someone else uh, give them what they need or want, your children, or as you mentioned, the relatives, and and you kind of stay back. Oh yeah, I need to help them, and helping becomes a way to do something good while you have this big hole in your
Right.
own heart or soul. So it's not that clear cut, uh, but your message is absolutely right. You should you should make yourself whole first before you help others, because then it turns out that you have so much more to give, and your journey to help other people will be so much nicer. And I
Exactly.
mean, that's what it's about, isn't it? To, in spite of a storm, in spite of difficulties, in spite of, there's all kinds of things going on all the time, and we have the wars, and we've always had wars. It's eternal, isn't it? But
Exactly.
how do you center yourself in the middle of this chaos going on around you? Small chaos, big chaos. So that is what I help people with.
So I know sometimes our listeners will write in and say, you keep talking about these tools, but you don't show tools. And the reality of it is, a tool is not necessarily something that is visible. It's more about how we relate to things, how we can become mindful,
Yeah.
how we can, you know, going back to where I was for many years, my paternal grandmother always said to me, if you make other people happy, Karen, you're going to be happy. And I worked so hard at making people happy that I got to about the age of 50 and I was feeling miserable.
Mm,
It's not that I didn't want to keep making people happy. I was giving so much of myself away. And
too
so I want
much.
people to understand the tools that we talk about is changing our mindset,
Hmm.
taking care of ourselves, um, you know, taking your pulse every day. What am I good for today? And it
And
doesn't
not
be
just
the
every
same person.
day,
Yes,
not just every day, every minute, every so often, every moment. Check in, check in, check in. Because it's a fleeting state. We're in this constant flux. So one state might be great, and then someone says something rude, something that you take offense to, and all of a sudden you're in another state.
exactly.
And how do you handle that? So absolutely, it's a constant um, mind shift and resettling, and absolutely.
So when did you start coaching? Because so many people don't even understand what a coach does anymore. Um, I remember when it was recommended to me a little over 10 years ago that I get my coaching certification. I looked at them and I said, well, I don't know how to play any of those sports. That's where my mind went. A coach coaches baseball, basketball, football. And the person looked at me and said, Karen, you're smarter than that. You've been coaching all along. But if you went out and got your certification, you probably would feel a little better about yourself doing it independently. And it was like, well, I need to understand what a coach does. And I spent a year doing all this research because I wanted to make sure I totally understood it. So when I started coaching, my abilities were totally different then than they are now, because you bring your life into your coaching. So when did you all of a sudden get this light bulb that said, hey, maybe this is the path I should take?
Yes, so true. My first period was doing this art. So I became an illustrator, not that full-fledged artist. I did this kind of halfway solution. And that led to commercial art, that led to advertising, graphic design, but I never dared to do that freestyle, being the full-fledged artist. But as I was being this graphic designer, art director, I started feeling that emptiness. This was fun. It was a great part of my life. But I got a calling that I needed to do something more meaningful. And so I was back to square one. God, what do you want? So I started following that inner voice. And that's what I tell my clients now. Don't listen to your feelings, listen to your intuition. And that's a tiny little voice until you get comfortable with it, until you connect with it, until you get used to it and practice listening to that inner voice. It's very, very subtle at first. So I started following it. I went to this course and that course, and it was the fact that I just really felt that there had to be something more important to do in life than try to sell another TV or try to sell another car or try to sell another product. And so that's what happened. I just said, well, I have to do something else now. And I started following that maze again.
And it's interesting because I know when I was growing up in the 50s and 60s, people went to work and they worked there 25, 30 years, whether they liked the job or not, but that was part of what they did. And that was the message I was getting from my parents. Okay. You're going to get your education. You're going to get a job. You'll be able to retire by the time you're 60. And it was like, but I don't even know what I want to do. Okay. I mean, I knew what I wanted to do, but I knew my parents were not on my side for it. And so I struggled probably from the age of 18 until my early 50s. When I finally woke up one day and I said, what am I doing? I'm smarter than I've allowed myself to be. Because I convinced myself that I wasn't a good student. Why should I go back to school? Why should I do anything that involved education? Because that inner voice was telling me I wasn't good enough. And yet I have a husband who's always telling me how smart I am, how good I am at things. And I finally started to listen.
Wonderful.
And that's what I hope those who are listening to this podcast will understand, that sometimes we allow that inner voice to beat us down. And we don't hear the things that are happening around us. And sometimes you gotta say, okay, I'm gonna just listen for a second, see if it means anything. And that's what I did.
Beautiful.
So how do you approach this with your clients when they come to you and say, feeling empty, I need something more?
Well, then it is that voice again. You do need to allow yourself to go inward. And some people have religion, some people have different tools. They might be spiritual, and yet a lot of that is outer confirmation. There's a God. Okay, I have to listen to the God. Oh, there's that teacher or spiritual teacher. I have to listen to what they say. Oh, they have the answer and they have the answer. But they don't. You do have to sometimes get angry at God. I remember the first time I heard that. It was so liberating. You can get angry at God? Really? Yes, you can. And that's when you get better contact, when you stand up for yourself, when you say, no, this doesn't work for me, when you say, let me try this in spite of all these outer voices telling you or insinuating that you can't, let me walk my own path. So I take my clients on this journey of discovery. What little voice comes up? What imagery comes up? What can you envision looking forward? And it's actually not very easy for a lot of people because our whole system, our whole society, or well, where we live in this so-called developed part of the world, you actually are taught to follow some very strict guidelines. Do this to walk the corporate ladder. Do this to become an entrepreneur. These are the steps, and follow and follow and follow and follow someone else's advice. Some of it is sound, but the real big breakthroughs, the real big powerhouses are stemming from something new, something that what people haven't followed in someone else's path. So that's what I try to encourage my clients to allow themselves to believe in themselves in spite of these outer pressures and whatnot. And it's not always easy. So guidance is needed, encouragement is needed. So that's what I help and work on.
You know, it's interesting because my son was doing his internship in college, and he got an internship at an internet radio station 13 years ago. And I was so jealous because communications was my background. He was doing what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched him and I praised him because he was good at what he was doing. But one day I pulled him to a side and I said, I have to tell you, honey, I'm jealous. You're doing what I've always wanted to do. And he said, so why aren't you doing it? And so I went to the internet station that he was working at. I gave them a proposal. They looked at me like I was the craziest person in the whole world. I said, you know what? Maybe I am, but I would like to try it. I said, you don't have to pay me anything. Just give me a time slot, one hour a week. And I had no idea what I was doing other than the fact that, you know, in my head, I remembered some of the stuff I learned in communications and broadcasting classes. And it was like, okay, I think I know what to do. And I had my first guest, and it was somebody who I knew really well. But in interviewing them, I threw my notes away and I just started having a conversation.
That's
And
the best.
after that first show, the people came up to me and said, how long have you really been doing this, Karen? I said, in my head, I've been doing it for a good 30 years. And they said, then don't stop.
Yes.
And, you know, that's what I tell a lot of my clients. If you don't take the step forward, you're never going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be part of you that's going to be empty. And how do you share that emptiness with somebody else? People don't want your emptiness. They have their own. They want to see your fullness.
But then I'm thinking vulnerability comes up for me, which is if you actually allow yourself not to complain, not to wallow, not to, if you do allow yourself that vulnerable place of having a discussion about something, having an honest talk with someone about the fact that, is there something I can do? Do you have any suggestions? Do you, having that heart-centered dialogue about, what do you see in me? What, just in generalities, just to awaken someone, help them see clearer. Because once you've been in a place for a long time, once you've been shut down, so to speak, you might need that little encouragement. You might need that little help to blossom, help to develop and start filling the hole and the emptiness. Um, but what I've noticed is that when people do let themselves be in the empty space, which is very odd and strange to most people because we're also busy and this and that and something else. So enjoying the emptiness, I call it a vacuum. So that emptiness, if you allow yourself to be there, if you allow yourself to look for what's nice about being in that emptiness, then you might notice, excuse me, you might notice that you start sucking in. It starts filling up. The emptiness starts filling up with beautiful, beautiful things. And one of them can be a friend, one of them can be one of those people that you can actually have this vulnerable talk with. So I always suggest that people do allow themselves not to hurry to fill that
Oh,
emptiness.
absolutely.
Take
Because,
the steps, but yeah, no rush, no pressure.
well, it's like filling up your dinner plate with food that you probably don't even want. Okay.
Right?
And that's how I've explained it, that, you know, that empty feeling in me did not go away day one when I
Mm,
started podcasting. It didn't
right.
go away when I left my corporate job.
Mhm.
It was there. And then I had other pockets of emptiness. Part of
Right.
it was I was used to going into my office every day. I wasn't doing it anymore.
Mm,
I was on my own. I wasn't
mhm.
getting that paycheck.
Yep.
And that was new pockets of emptiness. How do
Yeah.
I fill those in?
Right.
And I still get them. There will be days like yesterday when um, clients just didn't show up, or they showed up and they just said, today's not a good day for me. And I sat here, and instead of trying to figure out what it was I wanted to do, my vulnerable self was saying, it's not fair. You ruined my day. Until I finally heard those words and said, wait a second, do something else. Get yourself involved in something else.
Mhm.
And I did. So we can have that self pity to some degree, because sometimes it helps us. Why am I doing this? What now? What can I do now?
Exactly. I teach people happiness. I have happiness training because it turns out that it's not that simple to be happy. So what I notice is that people take life very seriously. I have to be productive. I have, like you mentioned, there's this little hole, a little pocket, a little, what should I do? Oh, I have to do something productive. Well, how about if you just take it easy, take a little breath, lean back, step out, look out some window, take a cup of tea or whatever it is that you enjoy, step out for some air, do something soothing, do something, call a friend that you haven't spoken to in a while. Um, just allow yourself some downtime, some unproductive time, something where you don't have to be so on and efficient and good and clever. And uh, that I see is missing from a lot of people's lives. And that's my theory. I've been doing this for 15 years, and my theory nowadays, they change and grow and evolve, but the reason people aren't happy, the reason people aren't truly happy is because they don't let themselves. They figure they need to all this stuff, and they have a long list of what a good person is, and ease and comfort, and that's what you do on holiday. That's what you dream about. That's what you. But maybe you can squeeze it in here, there, and everywhere instead. So that's how I see to live a happy, good life.
You know, my older brother caught me feeling sorry for myself about 15 years ago. It was during the Christmas holidays. And I put something out on Facebook. You know, we're all alone. We no family here, no friends here, and just my husband and my son and me. And my brother read it. He called me up and he said, delete that right away. And I want you to think about it. And I'm crying on the phone to him. Oh, I'm so lonely.
Mm.
He said, what can you do about it? And that day, I had no idea. I really didn't. And I was mad at him. How dare you take my feelings away? But within about 2 or 3 days, I started realizing I was lonely on Christmas Day. Because in my head, everybody else was with family, having fun, getting the best presents in the world. And here it was, the three of us, and we exchanged a few presents, and I'm doing all the cooking and everything. And when I had time to think about it, it was like, God, he's right. Why didn't I just enjoy myself for the day?
Mm.
I had my husband and my son here. And if I had asked them to help me, they would have, but of course I didn't. And when all that came tumbling down on me, it was like, okay, I know how to change this.
Mm.
But then I had realized for so many other years, I hadn't voiced it out loud, but that was going through my head every holiday that we were alone. Oh, woe is me.
Exactly.
And now I have to tell you, I look forward to holidays when it is quiet, when it's just the three of us, because I cherish it because I'm busy so much of the time. I get to
Love
sit
it.
back and enjoy my family.
Exactly. And I just had this talk with a group. I run groups as well, where we practice and train together. And I was just mentioning and clarifying, it's happiness training is not about always being happy. And that might come as a bit of a strange comment, because it's a progression. It's a development and evolution. The more you allow yourself to be unhappy, the more it's okay to have a bit of a situation, to have a bit of a cry, to have a bit of a feeling sorry for yourself. When that becomes okay, because for most people it's not. For most people, they think they shouldn't and aren't allowed to. And
Right.
the strangest thing is that when you start letting yourself and acknowledge what you're going through, you shift out of it. It doesn't become such a big thing. And you basically raise the bar. So you don't feel so sorry for yourself. Each time you go through this process that you just explained, the bar gets risen higher and higher and higher. And all these spiritual people and the saints and whatnot, they went through horrible things. But slowly, slowly, surely, when you let yourself, and it's not wrong to be human. We have all
Right.
these feelings, the whole register. When you allow yourself to register, cry a little bit, and then, well, what do I have? What can I be grateful for? I have these people that are here with me. Let me enjoy what I actually have. And that is the pathway. You just grow and grow and evolve, and it's beautiful. You described it exactly how I see in my clients and all that over all these years, that that's the process. And again, it gets shorter by not making it wrong.
exactly. And that was the interesting part that I found when I started coaching and realizing that the things that made me uneasy or unhappy or ecstatic, I was now focusing and saying, okay, I know I can't always be ecstatic. I can't always be up here. That takes a lot of energy. And when I
I've
realized,
tried it.
like, I realized, well, it's okay to come down a few levels. And
Right.
there are some days that, yeah, I'm going to be down at the bottom.
Yes.
I know when my mother got sick, I went up to Michigan and I lived with her for the 2.5 months before she passed. And I would say to my son and my husband when I would call them, I miss you, but I'm happy that I'm here.
Exactly.
And I was feeling guilty using the word happy in the
Mm.
beginning. And I talked to one of her spiritual individuals, and I said to him, why do I feel happy to be here? And he said, because you're fulfilling something for you and your mother.
Exactly.
And he said, and as sad as the situation is, you're finding the good in it.
Exactly.
And
That's it.
I have used that a lot with my clients because I was feeling guilty. Once I said I'm happy, and some people looked at me like, are you crazy? Your
Mhm.
mother had a stroke. She's blind. She doesn't know it. She's bedridden, and you're by her side 24/7. And I said, yeah, but I'm with her.
Mhm.
And I'm holding her hand and I'm talking to her.
Yeah, exactly.
But I needed somebody else to help me see clearly that
Mm.
it was okay. And when she passed, at first I couldn't feel the tears because I was still there with her.
Yeah.
And when those tears finally came, I remember going to one of my coaches and saying, why am I so sad now? I was so happy for 2.5 months.
Mm.
And they said, but you were allowed to. And you're also allowed to be sad.
Exactly.
And it has evolved. And so I think it's like you said in the beginning, we never stay in one place.
Mm.
We're going to constantly be changing.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And it's kind of trite, that whole saying about how life isn't a destiny. It is a journey.
Yes.
And when you realize that, you can't go wrong. When you actually accept it, the good and the bad, when you get married, you say for better and worse. And exactly, that is life. And we have the first professor of happiness in Sweden. Uh, happiness. Who studies happiness? Well, now people are starting to study the positive psychology, and there's all kinds of movements. I do EFT tapping, which is several methods in one, you could say. And if you allow yourself the whole register, then it's possible to just be happy no matter what. Like you said, someone is dying. So how can you be happy? Well, because we are together. She doesn't have to die alone. Someone is there with her. I can be there with her. Uh, in vulnerability, there's something amazing that grows when you allow yourself to be in the sadness together. You were happy, but let's say you're sad. That can be so, so beautiful. There's all sorts of music that is written, and poetry, and it's all written about sadness, or a
Right.
lot of it anyway.
Sure.
Um, and it's beautiful. People get praised for it because that is the reality. It's not happy, haha, at all costs.
Right.
It's the other way around. When you um, embrace everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, the pretty, the joyful, that is what it's about. That is what joy and happiness and true fulfillment is all about, when you can be happy in the darkest of moments. And again, we're not talking about laughing out loud happy,
Right.
but there's
Exactly.
a fulfillment, some sort of a peace, calm, satisfaction. Um, you're home.
And to our listeners, anyone can reach these heights if they want to. And that's where sometimes I will tell a prospective client, I'm not going to work with you at this time. And the reason being, if they're not really invested in seeing their past and bringing it to the future and looking at the future, then they either need to go see somebody else or embrace the changes they want to make. I know when I got forced out of corporate America, I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do. I had been podcasting on the side. Do I do it full time? And I started blogging for a company. I didn't think of myself as somebody who could write. But as I was blogging and I was getting paid for the blogs, my confidence built. And it was like, I know I can do so much more. Now, if somebody would have just told me, hey, Karen, go get a writing job and you'll be okay, it wouldn't have worked. I had to find that path. And the way I found it was totally by accident. Something came up in my email and I thought it was spam, but I responded to it anyways. So for 2.5 years, I was writing. If we open our eyes, things do happen around us.
They do. And it might not be what we want, but it might be the best for us.
Right.
And that's why I don't focus on the law of attraction, but it's part of what I do. And depending on where the client is and what's happening for them in their life, sometimes it is appropriate to show a person that you can wish for something. Go ahead and co-create. Go ahead and put in your calling card or your wish list, but add or something better, because that is where you get an even better solution. Because we think we're clever, and we are. Most of us are clever, but we have no clue what's out there. We have no clue and which is the best path for us. And again, listening to all the gurus, and they're on a different path. Please, please, please choose your own by going inward. And how you said, it comes from somewhere you could never imagine, and it is the best for you.
So how can my listeners find you? Because you have a wealth of information. And as I tell prospective clients, even for myself, I may not be the person you need to work with. There are wonderful coaches out there, and wonderful Zoom and other programs can bring us together. So I may have somebody here in Ohio or California that says, Karen, you're not the right person for me, but I like what Joanna had to say. So how can they find you?
Thank you. Yes, I call my company Blissy Joy, Blissy with a Y, and Joy, obviously, with a Y, because that is what I discovered. I discovered during some hardship, I was torn. Should I stay? Should I leave? Again, I went inward, and I connected to a voice. I connected to what I call God. Someone else might call it a higher self, or there are all kinds of descriptions for this higher power. And that is what I experienced. I experienced amazing, amazing bliss for days, weeks. I was floating, and it's an amazing place. But as we mentioned, it's not actually so amazing forever. It's like eating
Right.
chocolate every day. You do get tired of it.
Yeah.
And that is why I, after all these trials and errors and clients and back and forth, um, you can be in bliss and joy a lot more than you normally are, and you should. And as we've said, in spite of what's going on. And that's what I teach. I teach people how to be happy, wherever they are and whatever life throws at us.
Absolutely.
We can take it. It's not what is thrown at you, it's how you take it. And so happiness, everyone deserves it. We deserve it no matter what is going on. There's a way of putting yourself in a place, in a position, in a mindset, and not be as bothered, not be as down, not be as um, horrified or terrified, um, and choose happiness. It's actually choice,
It is.
which people don't realize. We actually don't realize it, that it is a possibility to just choose. So yeah, Blissy Joy, I have all kinds of free training. I can take people through this step-by-step process, and they can practice it. And I change things out. So, but yes, they're welcome to reach me
Well, we'll
that
put
way.
everything in the show notes. So
Thank
there's
you.
no excuse if somebody's listening and says, I don't remember exactly where you said to go back to the show notes. Or you can always contact me at New Cleveland Radio, and I can give you direct contact to Joanna. And I want to thank you for joining us today.
Thank
I
you.
think anybody who's listening right now probably has at least this little bit of happiness going on, and
Mm,
are going to want to expand it. So
yes,
thank
we
you for
all
that.
deserve more.
Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen.
Bye-bye.
Bye.